Update. My ex-friend, 27F, crashed into me, 28F, and wrecked my husband's, 27M, brand new car. I posted earlier this week to ask for advice about how to tell my husband his new car got totaled, when the ex-friend that I cut off earlier this month rammed into me. I appreciate everyone taking the time to give me advice. I wasn't thinking clearly, and it was really helpful to get some online strangers to talk some sense into me. In hindsight, I was too hyper-focused on the car and didn't really fully process the fact that someone I've known for 7+ years almost actually killed me. As for breaking the news to my husband, that didn't turn out quite the way I expected. I knew that I had to tell him as soon as possible, and I was trying to figure out the best way to phrase it. But about 20 minutes after I made my post, he actually called me in a panic because he was afraid I was in a coma in the hospital or something. Turns out his Tesla and the phone app has a lot more bells and whistles than I knew about. It sent him notifications and videos from the car's cameras about the crash, but he didn't see them until the evening. His company has a strict policy about only company-issued phones being allowed to be turned on while in the tech center office. So when he finished work and pulled out his personal phone, he was greeted by multiple notifications that a crash had occurred and links to the videos, since by that point it had been many hours since the crash. He was terrified that I had been seriously injured. At first, he was incredibly upset with me for not calling him immediately on his work phone. After I apologized profusely and explained the whole story, his frustration turned to concern, and he insisted I go see a doctor to get a full physical, even though I felt fine. He then got the first flight he could find the next morning, and he's been spending the last few days with me and taking his work meetings remotely. I've apologized a couple times for not cutting my ex-friend, Lucy, off earlier before my husband came into my life, and I've apologized for the loss of his car. But each time he just brushes it off and says something that melts my heart, like, "I'm happy that the car did its job and protected you from Lucy," or, "The car is a thing, and things are replaceable. You're not. The insurance paperwork still isn't finalized yet, but it's looking increasingly likely that the car will be a total loss." I think my husband placed an order, or at least is seriously contemplating placing a new order for a new car. We'll probably have to wait 10 to 12 months to get it. But in the meantime, we still have my car to drive, and we'll figure something out. My husband also wants us to do some marriage counseling because he says I have a tendency to avoid or push off difficult conversations. After this week, I realize he's probably right, so we'll be exploring that early next year. As for me, I'm glad I escaped the crash mostly unscathed. I got an urgent care appointment for the next day, and the doctor concluded there wasn't anything seriously wrong with me, but recommended I get a more comprehensive check from my primary care physician next week. 2 of my teeth have been hurting since Tuesday, and I'm not sure if it's related to the crash. My husband suspects I might have bitten down too hard on my teeth as I was bracing myself for the crash and cracked something. But I made an appointment with the dentist next week to check. In my original post, I didn't say much about what happened with Lucy after the crash because the post was already getting long and it wasn't directly relevant the advice I was seeking. But the police arrested her soon after the crash and called me to let me know. Apparently it was pretty easy because they found her at home. I gave them her address, and the front section of her car was missing and beaten up. They asked her if she had been in an accident earlier that morning, and she told them a harrowing tale about how she barely escaped a violent motorcycle gang. When the police asked her why she didn't report it or seek assistance from emergency responders, she looked like a gobsmacked goldfish. This was all told to me by the detective assigned to my case. I didn't witness the arrest myself. I've been in contact with the other people from my college friend group that also knew Lucy. And they all expressed a mix of sympathy, mild surprise, and appreciation for me giving them a heads up. One of my friends actually had a situation a couple years ago where Lucy threatened to hurt my friend's dog after she cut contact with Lucy. But nothing ended up happening, so they forgot about it and moved on with life. My husband and I are searching for lawyers to help us with filing a restraining order as well as exploring other possible legal actions. But we haven't gotten many replies back yet because it's the holidays. I doubt it'll be worth the time and money to sue Lucy for damages. But it's an option we're considering. The attorneys that we have had preliminary consultations with so far have all advised us not to speak to Lucy directly nor speak too much about this situation publicly aside from basic facts. While there's pending litigation, legal considerations, so I won't be posting any more about her in the foreseeable future. Long story short, we're overall doing pretty well. The craziness has settled down a bit and my husband and I are sticking to our planned holiday festivities. Thanks again for everyone's input and happy holidays. A violent motorcycle gang? Lucy doesn't strike me as being the best liar, huh? As for your teeth, I think your husband's suspicions are probably right. I was in a car accident a couple years ago where I was rear-ended. I ended up with some tooth pain, so went to the dentist. Her first question was, "Did you see the car coming towards you?" Quote, "Apparently it's common for people to damage their teeth by biting down too hard while bracing themselves for an incoming hit." I've been in contact with the other people from my college friend group that also knew Lucy. And they all expressed a mix of sympathy, mild surprise, and appreciation for me giving them a heads up. This part speaks volumes. Hey guys, remember Lucy? Well, she tried to murder me. Oh, I find that mildly surprising. It was marginally unexpected that Lucy would attempt vehicular homicide. Wow, Lucy sounds like she needs some serious help. Congrats on having a supportive marriage. And good luck on moving forward. I missed the original, but I'm glad you have a great husband who was so worried about you and not the car. Original. https www.reddit.com/r/relationshipadvice/comments/rlq/howdoy28f tell my husband 27 miss brand new UTM source equals share and UTM medium equals IOSAP and UTM name equals IOSSMF. Glad everything worked out. This sub has so many stories about bad spouses. I'm glad you can tell us about a healthy relationship. Please don't brush off the fact that Lucy tried to seriously murder you. She drove her car right at you. I'm glad you're okay. But Jesus Christ, Lucy needs to be locked up. Great update. I would consider seeing a physiotherapist and getting checked out to make sure all of your muscle movements are proper and work okay. I had quite a lot of pain in my teeth after a car accident as well. I ended up not really needing much repair work. But what helped most was a prescription toothpaste they gave me to help with the pain sensitivity. So you might want to ask about that if they don't offer it. I highly suggest that you get a lawyer. Insurance companies try to weasel out of fair payments all time. You need someone to protect your interests just to get everything covered properly. Do not fuck around and trust them. Get a professional to help you. I didn't see your original post, but it's so very refreshing to read that a guy cares more about his wife than his expensive car. You have a good one there and I'm glad you're okay. Lucy needs mental help and I'm glad you're speaking to a lawyer about going after her legally. I think it's something like a fear defense mechanism. You felt so guilty about it even though it wasn't your fault. You were internalizing things that were beyond your control and blaming yourself and worrying. But just know that you can't be perfect, and if you make a mistake, your husband has shown he's a good support system. You can use this awareness to become more empowered in standing up for your own worth. I am glad you are okay and that your husband handled it so well. One of my friends actually had a situation a couple years ago where Lucy threatened to hurt my friend's dog after she cut contact with Lucy. You better call and ask her to tell the police what happened to her as well, because this is not an isolated case. This was not a coincidence. Lucy is dangerous and she could have killed you just because of her childish behavior. She's a threat to society, and police should be aware of that. Maybe she needs some medicines to keep her in line. You really should take this with much more caution, because she's a real threat to your life. She's not someone who is just annoying. She's someone that's willing to seriously hurt and even kill anyone just because this person upsets her, and you shouldn't ignore this fact. Do everything you can to keep her in jail or at least in a madhouse. Not joking. You should take this situation and her behavior way more seriously, because in your first post and even in this one you barely mentioned her, like the car was a bigger concern to you. Tell the police how dangerous she is and tell them that this is not isolated behavior. If it goes unpunished, she will feel encouraged to do it again. Don't give her a chance to destroy your life. For real. Just because you were afraid to expose her true nature. The car is just a thing. I'm glad your husband has this mindset. As far as Lucy, she's no longer next friend. She's the bee that tried to kill you. Make sure you take the proper steps to protect yourself. I saw the original post but didn't have anything to add beyond what was said. I'm glad hubby is a good man. It's just a thing. I hope you and him do well in life. I hope you can get the cow to pay for the lot. I've been in a car that was rammed deliberately. You'll probably be developing physical and mental consequences for a while. Especially if you braced yourself against the crash when you saw it coming. The physical shockwave traveling through tensed muscle has consequences. Go to physio regularly and get an MRI on anything that doesn't start to feel better in the next week. So, Lucy is going to jail for a while. You should absolutely sue her for damages. Both physical and emotional. In my country, Lucy's car liability insurance would be paying for your damages. And then her insurance would have to try and get it back from her once the court has decided that she did it on purpose. Glad you and hubby are dealing with everything. Hope everything works out well! Exclamation mark. I remember reading your story when you posted it. I am glad that it worked out well. Please make your health a priority, and it does sound like you are taking care of that. Also, apart from getting a restraining order for Lucy, please let this tale be known far and wide among your friends who are also Lucy's friends. It would be bad if they get into a car accident with Lucy and may not be as lucky.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.